Coach, I was expecting to have you on to give me some advice about Israel. When I was texting you, I said, hey, this is the day before we're scheduled to leave. Literally in the last 15 minutes, they have canceled all the flights to Israel. Just as a guy who's been to Israel for a long time and has been fighting on the side of the Jewish people for a long time, what does that make you think that they're canceling even El Al flights? They have to be expecting a lot of bad things coming towards Israel right now from their enemies.
Yeah, Clay, I'm sorry that your trip got canceled because just the opportunity to go to Israel and experience it, be so close to God, and the courage that you showed and want to show by being there and bringing the stories back to all of us firsthand. So hopefully you'll get to go. This is not a war that Israel wanted. This is not a war they started. And I don't think right now they really want a seven-front war. Israel is going to have to take care of Hezbollah if Hezbollah won't take care of itself diplomatically. They've been launching rockets since October 7th, nonstop, and so much of the country has been displaced in the north. And but they don't want to bite off more than they can chew, and they understand that a full-fledged war with Hezbollah is going to mean potentially thousands of Israelis dying because they can reach everywhere and anywhere in Israel. It'll take a monumental defense and tremendous casualty of life. But they're going to take care of Hezbollah because Hezbollah has made it clear, like Hamas and some of Israel's enemies, that they want all the Jews in Israel dead, that they are unwilling to live side by side as neighbors in peace. And the shame of it, there are about 2 million Israeli Arabs living in Israel and doing wonderfully. I have chosen to be a citizen of the state of Alabama, living in Alabama. Before that, I lived in Tennessee, and I chose to contribute to my country and my state. And there are 2 million Arabs, Druze, Christians, Muslims living in Israel and living a great life. But there are some, including the Palestinians, the Gazans, some people that have had some terrible leadership that simply will not live in peace.
You have lived on, I believe you were born in Massachusetts. You've lived on all over the country. You've been a coach. When you see from Columbia to UCLA, the kids on campuses, you've been coaching kids for a long time, campuses everywhere, lining up and defending Hamas and their attack on October 7th. Two-part question. One, what do you think when you see it happening from Columbia to UCLA? Two, what do you think when you see so many Southeastern Conference and ACC schools in the South, whether it's the frat guys at North Carolina who refuse to let the flag touch the ground, or whether it's at many different SEC campuses where protesters showed up and chanted back against the pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian defense of October 7th. What do you feel about both of those perspectives as a guy who spent a lot of time with kids on college campuses?
Well, listen, Clay, as you know, young people, Americans want to right wrongs. We are for liberty. We are for freedom. Who wouldn't be against occupation, colonization, radicalization, racism? The problem is it's not true. The problem is these kids on these college campuses that are protesting have been sold lies and propagandas and things that are simply false. And so the Arab world decided, and some of the Arab world has decided since the beginning of time and in the Bible, that there's a challenge, there's a conflict with living with the Jewish people. And certainly when the State of Israel was created, when Zionism began the late 1800s, early 1900s, many Jews began to come back to a homeland that was promised to them and their ancestral homeland. Tensions began to build. And it was the decision of some in the Arab leadership that said, we're going to leave the Palestinians there. We're never going to accept the State of Israel. We're never going to accept the Jews living in Jerusalem or living in East Jerusalem or living in places where the Bible was written like Hebron or Shem or all these other communities that you would have gone and seen. You know, the Garden of Gethsemane, okay, where Jesus was betrayed, is in East Jerusalem. David's palace, the city of David, is in East Jerusalem. That's supposed to be the capital of a Palestinian state. And oh, by the way, in the state of Israel, while there are 9 million people, 6 million Jews, and 3 million others, how many Jews would be living in the Palestinian state in this two-state solution? And the answer is none. Because if there were any Jews there, they'd be dead. Okay, this is Prime Minister Netanyahu nailed it. He said, this is right and wrong. This is good and evil. This is humanitarian and barbarism. So when I see these kids on college campus, I'm like, dudes, you are completely misinformed. Okay? You are wrong about this. I would stand with you if what you were saying was true. On the other end, certainly proud of the evangelical Christians in the South and others in the community that have taken a different approach. Why? Some of them have gone to church or gone to synagogue. They know their Bible. They know the history. They know the reality. And they also understand this. It's one thing to protest. I was in Washington, D.C. for Bibi's speech. I walked the streets of Washington, D.C., and even walked through and around and close to some of those protesters. When I saw Palestinian women or children or kids, you know what? My heart kind of reached out to them, saying, you know what? I bet they've suffered. I bet you they've suffered. You know who needs to be freed from Hamas and Hezbollah? The Palestinian people. They've been used as shields. They've been used as pawns. They've been used as weapons by those terrorists to try to send the world a message that they've been mistreated. You know what? And I felt badly for them. But about 75% of the protesters, they kind of look like you and me, with just a little bit longer hair and maybe not as well bathed. I mean, that's who they look like. Okay? And so we're not going to accept violence. We're not going to allow you to take our flags down and burn flags and put up Palestinian flags. No. Not on our watch. Not here in this country.
You're a little bit like me, I bet, in that you love sports. You've had tremendous success. I think you're going to win a national championship at some point. But when you look at what's going on in the world, is it hard to be as focused on sport when you see what's going on in the larger context? I'm just kind of curious, even for a guy like you who's had tremendous success as a coach, when you look around at the larger world, how does that impact you and the job with which you are working as hard as you can at every day? How does that impact your perspective?
Well, Clay, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said we had some things in similarity. Used to be you were sports. That's where you got your start. That was what your passion was. That's what you knew. And then you began to evolve into something that, you know what? There's some other things going on in this world and in this country that kind of mattered more to you than just covering sports. I'm really proud of you for the way you've involved, the messages that you're delivering. And yeah, look, I got a job to do, and I love Auburn basketball, and I love the SEC, and I got a really good team this year, and I'm not going to take away time or talent or energy away from what I've got to do. I got to do my job. But yeah, I do worry about where we're at. I worry about I worry about where we are right now where the world is at war in Ukraine and Russia, and what's going on in China and what's going on in the Middle East right now. And so much of it was preventable. It was just preventable. Ukraine should have been told from the jump, look, love you, but you're not getting into NATO right now. You're just not. Russia's not going to have it. You can work with both of us. Otherwise, there could be war. We empowered it. President Obama believed, and I believe well-intentioned, Clay, that he could bring Iran into the world of nations, could bring them into normalcy and peace and productivity and whatever. He was wrong. They are an Islamic extremist state led by. They're holding their people hostage, and they don't really want peace and normalization. And what did our government do? What did President Biden do? He believed, just like Obama, hey man, we can do this nuclear peace treaty. We can allow them to sell some oil and be. No, you can't, because they take all that money and they give it to the terrorists. Iran, this country does not need to go to war with Iran, but we need to bankrupt Iran and that government and not let them fund the terrorism. We created the situation on the ground right now where thousands of people have already died because of our poor decisions in foreign policy. There cannot be two sides. And by the way, there are many Gulf Arab states, many, who are really happy that Israel is taking care of the problem of Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran. None of us like the death of the innocent people. None of us want war. It's awful. And what's going to happen right now in Israel, potentially, with Hezbollah in the north right now, is going to be is awful. I hope there's hope the United States is strong and gives Israel the ability to defend herself, because I think the gloves are really, really going to come off, and there's going to be a lot of death and dying on both sides.
Auburn men's basketball coach Bruce Pearl, I bet there are a ton of people out there, maybe Alabama fans even, that are like, man, it's hard to root against this guy. I appreciate you calling in, and hopefully we'll be able to get to Israel soon, because you've been telling me what an amazing country it is for a long time. I thought you were going to come on and tell me that our flights get canceled, but we'll talk to you again soon, and good luck with the upcoming season.
Okay, God bless America, and I'm Yisrael Chai. Thanks for covering it, Clay.
That's Auburn men's basketball coach Bruce Pearl. Awesome guy. Look, the peace of mind that comes with financial security for your family, harder than ever to do that with the rising cost of so many items. But every little bit of progress you can make in this regard goes a long way. As you're doing this for your family, you want to make sure you're diversifying your savings. Gold and silver are an excellent way to diversify your savings. They're a hedge against inflation, a physical asset in high demand globally from the wealthy to central banks. Through our friends at Birch Gold Group, you can own physical gold and silver in a tax-sheltered retirement account. As an easy example, you can diversify an old IRA or 401k for no money out of pocket into an IRA in gold and silver. Text Clay to 989898. Receive a free, no-obligation info kit. Learn the role precious metals play in your overall savings strategy. Again, text Clay to 989898. With an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau, thousands of happy customers, you can trust Birch Gold like we do. Text Clay to 989898. Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us. Man, it's been a whirlwind, a lot of different moving parts out there. Encourage you to go subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you don't miss a moment. You can search out my name, Clay Travis. You can search out Buck Sexton. I was scheduled to be in Israel next week. That now has been canceled. So I'll be on with Buck tomorrow, I think is the plan now. Podcast out there, really great. I mean, how great was Bruce Pearl? You guys are blowing me up right now. In addition to Donald Trump a little bit earlier, a lot of you who are not Auburn basketball fans are now going to have very hard time not rooting for Bruce Pearl. I've known him for a long time. He's an awesome guy. And just really gets it as somebody who spent a lot of time with college kids for across the country. Just the world that we're in today, where there's an inability to recognize evil, is probably the thing that troubles me the most. And you heard me talking with Bruce there. Look, I love picking who I think is going to win the Super Bowl. You guys know I love college football. I've taken Buck on the road with me. That's fine when there are relatively minor, and I say minor, disagreements in the country. You talk about tax policy, corporate tax rate, things like that, which we usually used to fight about in politics. Oh, I think it should be 28%. I think it should be 15%. Whatever. That's important. Economics matter a great deal. But it ain't good and evil. Not in the way that is crystallized, I think, right now for many of you. When you kill someone specifically because of their religion or their ethnicity, that's evil. What happened to Israel on October 7th is evil. The fact that so many people in this country are unable to recognize evil is a sign that we are in a very dangerous place. Because if you cannot recognize evil, then good can't triumph. Because there's not even a recognition of what good and evil is, I think, for many parts of this country right now. And it's certainly incredibly ironic at this point in time where so many people on the left have been telling you and me and many of us that we're on the wrong side of history. They're now lining up on the side of Nazis, and they don't even recognize that that's what they're doing.